Good morning, Kingsley community. Pastor Colleen Wehrman here with another daily devotion for Thursday, September 24th, 2020. Yes, it is the 24th. Using the Chosen, 40 Days with Jesus. Today is day 18, and it is entitled, the devotion is entitled, Emmanuel, and you will recognize this one of Jesus's first miracles, his first miracle, done in the Gospel of John, chapter 2, verses 6 through 11. Now there were six stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. This is where the Jewish people would wash their hands before they would go to the synagogue. So they had to be clean, and so there was ritual purification. And so they used these jars outside their homes, and they were huge, each filled with water to clean. Jesus said to his servants, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them up to the brim, and he said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." So they took it. When the master of the feast tested the water, now became wine, and did not know where it had come from. Though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and when people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So the writers write, there was a bona fide crisis underway. Back in Jesus' day, wine was a staple at most meals and a must at any respectable celebration. So he was at a wedding. But at this wedding, the wine had run out, a humiliation of epic proportions for the groom's family who was hosting the party. Jesus' mother, Mary, took it upon herself to find Jesus and bring him up to speed. And she said, "They have no wine," in John 2:3. But her sense of urgency and meaning were clear. Help! No one in attendance except his mother had reason to believe Jesus could provide. He was as poor as anyone else. Up until that moment, there was little to set him apart from any other partygoers, which makes his mother-directed debut a precious backdrop to what followed. Jesus' newly recruited disciples watched as he instructed the servants to fill giant jars with water. What a confusing but intriguing directive. The servants did as they were told, which included taking a glass of water to their superior, the master of the feast, who apparently knew nothing of the looming drama. And then at some point between the drawing of the water and the giving of the water, it turned into wine. Not just any wine, but awesome wine, the quality of which brought honor to the host, since common practice was to serve the cheap stuff as soon as the guests were too drunk to notice. Then it says, the party and reputation of his friends were saved, but all of the miracles Jesus could have performed first, he chose a wedding and wine, and only a few witnesses. Why? Because he's Emmanuel, God with us. The setting of his first miracle, the need in front of Jesus, which was potential embarrassment, and his obedience to his mom were consistent with everything else in his life. He was ordinary. Jesus was born in a stable, raised by simple people. But for the next 3 years, the disciples saw Jesus do extraordinary things in ordinary, everyday circumstances. They watched the Messiah be hungry, happy, tired, frustrated, angry, and in the Garden of Gethsemane, afraid. They saw him love on the poor and rich alike, often using the common to display his heavenly glory, like loaves and fish, mud, waves, trees, and tombs. They learned to minister to real people with real problems, to love with prejudice, to love without prejudice, to preach the gospel no matter the conditions. And through it all, the disciples followed in his footsteps because of their faith for the one who was with them, Emmanuel. You know, I've used this scripture at weddings, and the point of it is that Jesus is with us in our wedding celebrations, celebrating with us, caring for us, loving us, and then he goes with us into our marriages, which is really the key of any marriage, to be based on Jesus Christ. But what amazes me is that Jesus was with his people. Jesus was with his mother and this groom's father, who was going to be embarrassed because the wine ran out, because that was probably all he could afford. And when there was a wedding feast, it went on for a week back then in Jesus's time. It wasn't just a day. So think of providing wine for a week for hundreds of people. So this groom's father would have been highly embarrassed if he would have ran out of wine. It would have been the talk of the town and the village for many, many, many years to come. So Jesus instantly knew that there was going to be an embarrassing moment for this bride, for this groom's father, and so he stepped up to the plate at his mother's request. His mother had faith that he could do something about it. Yeah, of course. She grew up with him, or she raised him. She saw who he was. She saw all the potential and all the things that he could do that no one else could do, and she had faith that he could help, and he did. So, couple of questions for you to ponder as you think about the word Emmanuel, which means God with us, who dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. So the reason Emmanuel, that word, God with us, is not only to give us comfort and to give us peace, knowing that he cares and he loves us in the ordinary days, in the ordinary struggles, in those little things in our lives going on, to the big things in our lives. So whether it was a small thing like this very few witnesses and this loss of wine at a wedding, to big things like divorce and cancer and loss of a loved one. So know that Emmanuel is with you. If you believe in Jesus, he's with you. So here's a couple of questions to ponder today. At this moment, what circumstances are most difficult for you? And how should knowing that God is with you affect the way you respond to your circumstances? And last, just as the servants at the wedding had to draw water before they actually saw the water turn to wine, what are ways you can step out in faith as a result of his promise to be with you? So because they drew the water, took it to the bride's father, and he said, wow, my the host of this party, which was always the groom's father, family, has done an amazing thing and saved the best wine for later. Most people don't do that. But they had to draw the water out. They had to go through some things. They had to fill some jugs. They had to, that was probably quite a bit to do, because you don't just turn on a faucet back then. You had to go get the water. And these jugs were huge. They were probably, 4 foot tall, and they were big. And then they had to draw the water out. So how can you draw closer to God in your circumstance to know that he is Emmanuel and he is with you? Answer some of those questions that I gave you, and I will see you Sunday if you come to church at Kingsley United Methodist Church at 9 a.m., or you can view us right here live at 9 a.m. And we're going to talk about how to be an encourager, and we're going to use the book of Job, and we're going to talk about how Job's friends were miserable comforters in the midst of his suffering. So we're going to learn how to be better encouragers for ourselves and for others in our lives during this crazy time. It's going to help us stay positive by learning how to be better encouragers, by looking at how not to be a miserable comforter, as Job told his friends they were. So join me this Sunday at 9, or right here live at 9 a.m. And I pray that you have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you Monday. Bye-bye.